Hi guys, welcome back to Hairdryer Treatment. I'm absolutely buzzing to say we've got a debutant today on Hairdryer Treatment, but an absolute pleasure to have you on nonetheless. Kendall, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I know I've already said it, but I really do appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, and obviously doing great work on the football terrace. I've seen you there. Talking about, to be fair, Newcastle, there must be a lot to talk about at the minute. And I mean, I've said it off air. I've got a lot of friends who are big Newcastle fans, and they're very much bruised out. Obviously, turn the game off. I think most weeks just turn the game off because it's so bad. Sum it up as a Newcastle fan, like how are you feeling right now? Because you had the takeover talks through the summer. It seemed it was a matter of when it was going to happen, and obviously that didn't happen. Frustration, I think, is a big word, isn't it, right now?
Yeah, 100%. It's just, it went from literally 100 to 0. Like it went the complete opposite way around. In the summer, we were like, oh yes, Kylian Mbappe, Coutinho. Like we literally went from that to we're like 17th now, like really, really close to relegation.
Yeah.
And obviously, as I said to you off air, I didn't want to be there. That was at the beginning of the season. I didn't want to be there, considering we spent 100 million. Obviously, I know Steve Bruce probably wasn't like hugely the sole driver of transfers and things like that. But in the summer, I really thought we strengthened as a squad. Like obviously got Callum Wilson in, Jamal Lewis. We got the summer before we got like St. Maximin, and at that point I thought that our squad looked relatively decent. We signed players we needed. Started off the season with a couple of injuries, like Dubravka got injured, which to us at the time was like a massive blow because he had been so vital for us the past couple of seasons. But Darlow came in, stepped up, being really, really good. And then it's just gone completely downhill from there. I mean, last season we weren't happy. We were kind of hoping for a managerial change with the takeover. The takeover didn't happen, so that managerial change didn't come. But I mean, even you said yourself, like the football we play, if you can even call it that, is awful. It is so bad. It's probably, I mean, we had Steve McLaren and that was bad, but this football that we play now is easily one of the worst like systems of football that I've seen us play forever, really. So it's not looking good, especially, you know, we're 17th now, so it's looking really, really peak at the moment.
I mean, I've said it off air, but as a football fan in general, obviously I hope we batter Newcastle weekend. Of course I do. But from if I'm dragging myself out of that as a United fan, I'd say Newcastle, like the great club, a massive fan base, a massive stadium. And you'd think for potential owners, that is such an attractive proposition. And it's just, I feel really sorry for the Newcastle fans. It seems like it's been a while now that takeover has been coming, like it needs to happen. And this is from like someone looking outside, but it feels like it's ticking time bomb as to when you're going to get relegated again at the minute. It's kind of like you're just waiting. It's like stalemate. You need a fresh set of players and whatnot. I mean, you've got players like Willock in. St. Maximin, I'll be honest, is the player that I really like, and I'll talk about him in a minute, and he's one that I am scared of. But Willock has come in. Wilson's come in, obviously unfortunate with his injury at the minute, so you're back relying on Andy Carroll and Joe Linton, I believe, which is again bad luck for Newcastle. And then obviously Fraser came in as well. But I don't know, every time I watch Newcastle, it's like Bruce doesn't want to play Fraser and St. Maximin at the same time. And no, I can't get my head why you think that is.
Honestly, like we have all said the same, like Newcastle fans have said the same. At the beginning of January, we were kind of calling for it for weeks before that, before obviously St. Maximin was out with COVID, but we were calling for it for weeks because we believe both of them have the ability and the technicality to drive the ball forward, which is what we've been desperate for. And Steve Bruce was like, you know, I've never really had the opportunity to play Alan and Ryan together due to injuries, blah, 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 which was at the time a lie anyway. Obviously, you know, Ryan Fraser got sent off a couple of games ago, so he was suspended for a while. St. Maximin was injured. He just came back like 5 games ago. So that was fair enough. And then the last 4 games, no, I would even say 5 games, one of them's been on the bench and the other one's been on and then replaced the other one. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, there is literally no need for them not to play together because Almiron can play kind of centrally, maybe it's like a 10 just behind a 9. Obviously Wilson's out now, so then for me, I don't trust in Joe Linton to be a number 9. I don't really trust Andy Carroll to be fit for 90 minutes. Dwight Gale seems not to be favoured from Steve Bruce's perspective, even though he played last game, but he did come off. So why not play St. Maximin and Fraser on the wings and Almiron centrally? That's what I would personally do.
Yeah.
But no, he just can't do it. He's literally, I said he's got an allergy. Like, I feel like he's allergic to playing them together. Like, what does he actually think is going to happen if he plays them together? I genuinely don't know. But it just seems bizarre because, as you say, like, they're both ability-wise, and what we need if we want to play the ball forward is perfect for them. But no, he just doesn't want to play them together.
Yeah, that's it. Especially with Wilson being out, you think a bit more of a goal threat for you. Obviously, more options going forwards. But yeah, I'm a bit like you. I'm baffled as to why. Let's see in the chat what people are saying. 0161, thanks for that. George is in the chat. He says, hi, Soph, and welcome, Kendall. Hi, George. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're good. Our girl Nicole is in the chat. She's done a new article. Go and check that out. It goes on her Twitter. And big up to Nicole. Thanks for tuning in. George says Newcastle can definitely get a result versus us. 100%. Newcastle always turn up against Manchester United, regardless if how rubbish your season's going or how well our season's going or whatever. You always turn up against us. I don't know what it is, and that's why. I mean, any game. To be fair, people know here. I always say I'm not confident because you can never predict what United is going to turn up for us. But Newcastle's one that I can just never feel confident. Bits and Bobs says, evening guys, big up to Soph and Kendall. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Please go and subscribe to their channel as well. A lot of people tuning in. What's Carroll up to? Andy Carroll, genuinely, what's your thoughts? Because he seems to have been around forever for one. But he's just that lumpy guy, isn't he? I mean, Newcastle fans, I'm guessing that you love Andy Carroll, but surely you kind of get bored of seeing the same kind of lump up football.
Yeah, to be honest, I think the whole Andy Carroll signing was just like a publicity thing for Bruce to get fans on his side, because obviously he is ex-Sunderland. I mean, we've had ex-Sunderland players, and I mean, it's been totally fine, but in terms of the manager who has played against us as an opposition manager before for your local rivals, I think the whole Andy Carroll signing was just a publicity thing at first because he was only on a pay-to-play contract at the time. Yeah. And now it's just like, because we play so defensive, Andy Carroll's literally having to play centre-back at some points. Like, it's actually worrying when we play. And it's just... Yeah. He can't. This is probably the fit. See, weirdly, it's probably the fittest he's been in a good few years. It's the first pre-season he's completed in about 6 years, without injury. So now it's just keeping him fit for 90 minutes. And as you say, I hate the long ball football. If he's not on the pitch, there's no point in us playing long ball football, like, at all. There's no aerial threat there. Shelvey only seems to, his passes only work if Andy Carroll's on the receiving end of them. You know, it's a bit of a nightmare. And if he's not on the pitch, we still play long ball football. Like, why? What is the point? He's not there. And then in games where we could really use him, like, I mean, even the Chelsea game, arguably, I probably would have brought him on towards the end. But there's games like that where, you know, he could probably trouble a couple of centre-backs, but they just don't... Steve Bruce doesn't see that and doesn't think, let's put him on. He just kind of leaves him. It's a really, really strange one. I'm not Andy Carroll's biggest fan in terms of his ability now. I think he is really coming towards the end of his career. So really we need someone who is more athletic, if you will, more not just an aerial threat. But I kind of do understand if you're going to play defensive, why you would play him there.
Yeah. Tommy, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. He said, Andy Carroll's having a party, bring your vodka and your Charlie. You know what, though? I mean, I was just about to say this. Andy Carroll, you mentioned his physical presence. That's why he's there, isn't it?
Yeah.
You, like, as a Newcastle fan, looking at our defence, must be thinking, you know what? He can rattle those centre-backs. Lindelof and Maguire, if that's who's going to start, which I presume will do. You saw what happened to them at West Brom. We could have easily conceded 3 or 4 goals against West Brom. They got absolutely bullied. If Andy Carroll plays, he could be a problem for them, couldn't he?
Well, yes, I said this yesterday. I personally would probably play him, you know, against Man United, against yourselves, because the centre-backs for you is where probably the weakest part of your team. Not weak by any stretch of the imagination, just the weakest part, probably the centre-back pairing. I mean, even you probably don't even trust them yourself, do you know what I mean?
No,
I mean, Lindelof's either has a really unreal game and he makes some unbelievable tackles, or is just awful. I can't, there's no middle ground there. I don't really know what's going on with it.
It's true. It's so, like, if it's a physical player, like, he just physically, he's very vulnerable. I think that's why a lot of times I've said maybe it suits him to play more European football, like Champions League and whatnot, because it's a lot more ball on the floor. He reads the game really well. He's fairly quick. But when it's against a physical striker in Premier League, obviously you get that week in, week out. I do genuinely think he struggles. And I think that's where Newcastle will obviously try and target. Yeah. That's where West Brom definitely target. And they've got success from it, and you can't knock teams for doing that. But I agree. I think they're definitely our weakest link, if you like. And Nicole says, "Thanks, girls, both smashing it. Remember back in the day, growing up dreading playing Newcastle. Some things never change." Completely agree. You can never relax when you're thinking, "Oh, we've got Newcastle up next." And you mentioned the run of games that Newcastle have got. I mean, how confident are you in that? And it sounds bad to say this, but Newcastle staying up this season, because it's been a mad season, hasn't it? There's been crazy results. Do you think that it's just a case where you get one win and you go on like a run of wins? Is it just like a confidence thing at the minute, or do you think it'll take maybe the manager going for there to be a difference?
I think the mentality just isn't there for me at the moment. There's no fight from the players. I mean, don't get us wrong. The last, I would say, 3 or so games, we looked good. Like, well, not like, not battling for like good space or anything, but we looked relatively decent compared to what we have looked like for the rest of the season. Players' mentalities changed, their attitudes changed, they were heads up, going in fighting. And then we played Chelsea, and it was just, we didn't expect anything from that game, but it goes far beyond that fixture. Watching that game, it was like just going back to 4 games ago against Aston Villa, when like we looked awful, the players' heads were down. I mean, even Jamal Lewis was crying at the end of that game, and I think it was just frustration. And I am so concerned now. I was just about to say Fulham's already 1-0 up, which really does not bode well for us. The bottom 3 teams all play each other in the next couple of fixtures, which is worse because obviously someone's going to pick up points somewhere. And we've got, obviously, you guys next. We've got Wolves the game after that. And we've got West Brom and then Aston Villa. So I really cannot see where any points are going to come from for us. I'm really concerned that this is again going to be reminiscent of the McLaren year, when it got to mid-March, it was too late to get out of the relegation zone. They hired Rafa Benitez, and obviously he couldn't save us at that point. Steve Bruce should have been gone, if not at the end of last season, like midway through the first half of the season. So like maybe it's October time. He should have been gone then, and then that would mean, oh, okay, that's all right. I'm like a burn. I don't know what's going on. But he should have been gone then, and then the new manager could have came in, had a couple of months with the players, and then utilised the January transfer window. Yeah. But it just hasn't happened. Mike Ashley's come out and said, we're going to kind of stick with Steve till the end of the season, if not beyond. And I just don't think he really cares if we go down, which seems absolutely strange to me. It seems so strange, because the takeover's off then if we go down. So I don't know. I really just don't understand it. It's so confusing to me.
Yeah, Nippon, thank you so much for the super chat. Massive fan of your channel, so I wanted to ask if you're free to do a preview with me when we face each other next. Yes, just drop me a message and I'll definitely see what I can do. And thank you so much for tuning in as always. Always see your name in the chat. But yeah, you mentioned Newcastle, the whole relegation talk and whatnot. But say, for example, if Steve Bruce decided that the decision is going to go, who out there at the minute like tempts you? I've seen Eddie Howe's name be mentioned. Is that a manager that you would like?
Yes, because I believe Eddie Howe's probably a realistic option. Not a lot of managers would come under Mike Ashley, which is why Steve Bruce was actually 12th choice manager at the time when he took over. If the sources that I know are correct, he actually approached the club for the job, which it seems bizarre at the time, but that's what he's done. So Eddie Howe, yes, is realistic for me. I mean, I've seen Steven Gerrard's name mentioned a couple of times. I absolutely don't see why he would come. Like, that's just strange to me. Obviously, Rafa Benitez is without a job now, but there's no way he's going to come back under Mike Ashley. Like, no chance. He would be. I mean, I would think there was something wrong if he did. So, Eddie Howe for me right now is probably the only realistic option that I can see happening that I would be happy with, because otherwise it's like Mark Hughes or Nigel Pearson type managers, which is just another Steve Bruce, and I really don't want that. So
Frank Lampard.
Oh god, Lampard. See, there's another thing. Like, when he got sacked and everyone's like, oh, might we go to Newcastle? I was like, really? Like, he couldn't even work with like a 500 mil squad. What the hell is he going to do with us? And then people were like, well, arguably at Derby he did okay. He's worked better with like lesser players, if you know what I mean, less expensive players. So maybe he could do a job, but really, I think that's probably risky, to be honest.
This question here from Giants, she said, would you exchange Bruce with Ollie? I'm not going to ask you that direct question, but what's your thoughts on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Because obviously there's a lot of split fan base in terms of United. Yeah. When we're winning, there's a lot of people who are Ollie in, and when we're losing, there's a lot of Ollie outers out there. You see it all the time on Twitter, which I hate seeing, by the way, how reactive fans are. But in general, would you say he's doing a very decent job? Like United, obviously, title race, people are saying, like realistically, we know Man City, it's theirs to lose. But for us to be there or thereabouts, surely he has to be given some credit for that, doesn't he, Kendall?
Yeah, absolutely. I've said this before a million times. Like, people call him PE teacher and that, and I'm like, respect him, man. I get for a few weeks he was at the top of the table. Do you know what I mean? You're not far off now.
Yeah.
Look, Man City are unbeatable this year. They're unstoppable. They just look so solid in every area of the park. You cannot deny that, and which kind of seems unfortunate for Man United, because you were doing so well at the time, and they were kind of, you know, they weren't as close to you at that point. So I just think Ollie gets a lot of disrespect. Yes, you might not feel confident going to every single game, but unless you're Man City, does anyone feel always confident going into a game? It kind of takes the fun out of it if you're not worried. Like, you know, like that's what football's about. It's competitive. That's why the Premier League is arguably the greatest league in the world. So yeah, I just think he gets a lot of disrespect. I think he's doing a really, really good job. I mean, look, the Bruno Fernandes signing was phenomenal, unbelievable. I don't think anyone can deny that signing at all, and he's probably changed the dynamic. He's even brought Pogba on, you know, like Pogba's form's picked up since Fernandes has been a strong part of the team. So yeah, I think Ollie's doing a really, really good job.
Yeah, and George said I've been Ollie out since West Ham away last season. That's fine, and obviously people's opinions. I'm not saying you can't be Ollie out. Like, I understand it totally. I always kind of sit on the fence. I say that.
Yeah.
I think he deserves credit, and he's got like almost the impossible job, and I think he deserves more time. But I understand why people criticise tactically and whatnot. I get it. So I'm not saying that you can't be Ollie out. Like, your opinion is your opinion, and I totally respect it. It's just the ones who fluctuate from game to game. They're the ones that frustrate me when it's just on the flip of a coin. It depends what mood they're going to be. Do you know what I mean? That's the ones I'm talking about. But we spoke about Newcastle. I've spoken obviously about you're struggling for form, but I still am wary of Newcastle and playing against the players like St Maximin in particular. Longstaff, if players, always seems to turn up against United. Shelby can always pull something out the bag. It's just one of them, isn't it? Where you've got these players who can produce a moment, and 9 times out of 10 it's against us that it happens. So yeah, I'm not feeling confident. But how would you say you're feeling going into this game? And is there any like particular players at United that you'd say you fear?
I'm dreading going into this game again. I'm not dreading it in the sense of, like, we might lose. I know we're probably going to lose, and it's making me concerned that, obviously, as we say, we're going to get further dragged into relegation. The last 2 times we played, it's been 4-1, and I think, like, no, like, please don't do that again, like, please. But I told you before, I cannot see where we're going to get a goal from at all at this point. I really can't. So I am dreading it going into a game. I'm really, really worried about Bruno Fernandes, really worried about Pogba. Obviously, if both play at the same time. Rashford, I'm worried about. Cavani, I'm worried about. Mostly the attack, I'm concerned about. I mean, Wan-Bissaka, he's had a couple of relatively decent games on the bounce. Luke Shaw, who is someone who I would have completely discounted last season, and said, you know, he's probably not good enough for Man United. He'll probably never play there. Absolutely on fire this season. Like, genuinely, he has just had the biggest and best comeback of a player that I've ever seen. Like, genuinely, it's unreal the way his form's picked up this season.
Yeah.
So I'm worried probably about like 9 of your players, to be honest. The only ones I'm not worried about who will now have the game of their lives that I'm saying this is the 2 centre backs, but they'll now just go out and Harry Maguire probably go and score or something. Now I said that, so I'm really not really happy.
But if that happens, Newcastle's luck is definitely out. If that happens, that's what I'm saying. I love the Villa says Newcastle always seem to find good results against big clubs. Longstaff turns into definitely. But obviously we've got Europa League as well tomorrow coming up. And Ollie has had a press conference today. He said certain players are injured. Cavani's not travelled. I think Martial's got a knock, but he has travelled. So there's lots of Amad Diallo in the squad, and obviously could potentially have his debut. Cavani's another one who's injured. So obviously we don't know yet the extent of it, whether he's going to be back for the weekend. But you'd imagine if Cavani doesn't play, it'd be Martial starting up front. Martial this season, let's face it, he couldn't buy a goal. Like, he's really struggled this season. A lot of United fans are very frustrated with him as well. But do you think, like, as a Newcastle fan, Martial playing up front, does that make you a bit more relieved?
Yes, it makes me more relieved, because, I mean, I think it was up until 2 games ago, Martial and Joe Linton's stats were pretty much equal, which is awful. It's awful for Martial. I mean, look, we're like kind of resigned to the fact Jordan's just one of the biggest Premier League flops ever. But for Martial, I mean, that is just like awful. I am still worried about it because knowing, as I've said, knowing this now and me saying this now, he'll go and have the absolute game of his life and pick up form for the rest of the season probably, which is just sod's law for us really. But yeah, it makes me a bit more relieved than Cavani because look, Cavani's a goal poacher. Like what a player he is. You can't deny his prowess. He's just fab. And what a signing. But yeah, it makes me a little less concerned that it's going to be like a thrashing. But obviously, the goals don't come from Martial. You've kind of coped without goals from him so far. Yeah. It's come from everywhere else. So it probably doesn't make much difference, really.
Do you think with Martial, though, is it a case where he's just in bad form, or do you think it's you just don't rate Martial? What do you think it is with him? Because we've seen moments from Martial, haven't we? Yeah. But to me, like, every time we get another striker in, Zlatan came in, Lukaku came in, now Cavani's come in, and it's like when that happens, he goes off the boil a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, is it that added pressure? He just can't compete. Yeah, he doesn't like it.
Yeah,
I just wondered because obviously a lot of United fans are very. Me personally, I don't think I've still made my mind up on him, and he's been here like how many years, and I think that sums up a lot of United fans. Like you see moments from him where you think, oh, he's got so much ability. Then I call him Anthony Martial quite a lot, and that is because he's in games like literally like minimal. Sometimes you forget he's even playing.
Yeah.
Now to be a class player or a top player, you'd have to say that you've got to be more involved in games. You know what I mean? But 100%. I also understand the other side of it. Like you could say the lack of service coming in and whatnot. And I'd like to say that's what's frustrating because I think he's got the ability, but he just hasn't got that consistency.
Yeah, and that's obviously a problem when you are a club like Man United who can get really good strikers in who are going to overshadow you if they come in. Do you know what I mean? It's not good. I personally think he probably needs a change at this point now. I think he probably needs maybe even, like a loan. I don't know whether or not it'll be long term, or a loan, but I do think he needs a new environment because obviously, clearly, as you say, under pressure of strikers like Rashford, like Cavani, who are coming in and scoring the goals, and he's just lost form completely. I think if he wants to pick that up, he is still only, he's relatively young. He's not coming towards, the end of his career, whatever. I'd say he's probably coming towards the peak of his career. So if you're kind of not looking as if you're improving and you're not progressing, coming into the peak of your career, that's not good. It's not a great look.
Yeah.
So I do think he probably needs a little bit of a change of environment just to maybe pick his form back up and, gain some new skills somewhere along the way, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to go off topic a little bit here because you just reminded me. But did you see the clip with that ref squaring up to the player last night? Was it Ipswich? I think it was Ipswich. Yeah. But I think he's apologised now. I think Grealish retweeted it saying, "What's he apologising for?" It was brilliant. And what's your thoughts on that? Did you like to see that from the ref?
Well, it didn't surprise me. Like, I mean, look, it's not professional, but it didn't surprise me. The way some players go on in games, like, I'm surprised it hasn't happened way before this because I would lose my head if I was in half them games, so I don't know how anyone hasn't done it before. It's not great professionally, it doesn't look good, but if he's apologised and he's admitted where he's gone wrong, then you can't really mourn, I suppose.
Yeah, I think refs are human too. Do you know what I mean? And I think if someone is giving you shit, like you give it back, don't you? Normally, that's your natural instinct. So I think as a ref, it must be hard sometimes when it does get like quite emotional to keep that intact and stay professional. But yeah, I think it's one of them, isn't it? I don't think you need to dwell on it. It happened. Grealish, his tweet did make me laugh though because he literally just drew more attention to the situation.
But Grealish, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Ross says Shane Van der Beek is injured. Yeah, Van der Beek is injured. What's your thoughts on him though? His time at United. I mean, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying they feel really sorry for him. There was a clip of him being sub for Bruno Fernandes in the other game wasn't there, and he's looking towards the bench and he just looks really solemn about the whole situation. I do feel really sorry for him, but do you think it's a case where, one, do you believe that Ollie signed him? Because I genuinely don't think he's an Ollie signing. No. I think you can see that Ollie isn't keen. And that's nothing against Van der Beek. I just don't know if he fits into his system. But do you think there's a way that we could fit him in this season?
I feel so sorry for him. Like, I kept saying free Donny. Like, I feel so bad for him. I don't know. He just got a face that makes you feel sorry for him. Like,
yes, yeah.
And he was a talented player. Otherwise, Man United wouldn't have signed him. Even regardless of whether it was Ollie signed or not, they wouldn't have signed him if he wasn't talented enough for Man United. As you say, I just don't think Ollie probably sees him as fitting into his system, which hence why he hasn't played. Because if he did see a place for him, then he should be playing. I think I don't really know if Ollie's going to start, continue playing the system that he is, the midfield that he is. He prefers like kind of, McTominay, Pogba, Fernandes, people like that over Van der Beek. So he probably isn't going to fit in, which is a massive shame, because to play at a club for Man United, to be a young player like that is unreal, phenomenal. He probably is really upset about it, but yeah, I do feel really, really sorry for him, and I think there is the talent there, but as you say, there's just Ollie just doesn't like him. Whether or not, as you say, it's a system thing, whether or not he doesn't feel like he's good enough to play the way Ollie plays, I just don't know. But I do feel bad for him.
Yeah, because as a player, there, whenever he has played, to be fair, people expect to see like Bruno Fernandes, number 2.
Yes.
And he's a totally different player. And I think it's hard to compare him to Bruno, and people do that, but he's not that kind of impact player, is he? I feel for him. I think he needs a good run of games. And I'm intrigued to see what happens with his situation, because I think there's definitely a player in there. And like I say, when he has played, he hasn't really done anything wrong. He's just a completely different type of player. And I do feel for him. Question for me, do you think Anthony Martial should lead the line for France in the summer? I think he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to be anywhere near leading the line. I mean, even look across the Chelsea and look at Giroud and his record and the amount of goals he's scoring this season. Like, Martial has got to do a lot more. I'm not saying he's not good enough to do that, but we mentioned it earlier, consistency. To be a top player, you need to have that, and he simply hasn't got that at the minute. Mbappe, by the way, can we just appreciate yesterday, that hat-trick? He's just breathtaking, isn't he? He's just unreal. That finish as well, I mean, for the third goal, he made it look so easy. He's whipped it into the far corner. But Messi at Barcelona, do you think it's done? Like, he's just ticking down the time until he can leave?
Yeah, I think he's done. He's finished. I mean, look, he's not even standing out in a bad Barcelona team. Well, whether or not you think they're individually bad, maybe not, but the way they're
nowhere near the Barcelona, are
they? That everyone's known for the past, 15 plus longer years. And he's not even doing much. I mean, he only scored a penalty yesterday, so he's not even doing much in like an awful team, considering the world-class player that he is, like the best of, our generation. So for me, I think he's finished. His head's gone. I mean, look, he started punching someone the other week, like in the back of the head, like slapping someone in the back of the head. What was that about? Like, you don't see that from Messi. So that's how I know his head he's lost it. He's completely lost his head. Whether or not he moves in the summer, because his contract is just absolutely insane. He is pretty much a massive chunk of Barcelona's revenue in, interest. So what they'll do, I absolutely don't know, but I do think that's it. This summer, he's gone. I think he has to for kind of the football world, in all honesty.
I mean, it's sad to see Barcelona in that state as well, isn't it? You look at the La Liga now, and the teams that are really pushing on, you'd say, is the likes of Atletico, even Sevilla, but Real Madrid and Barcelona at the minute. I mean, just entertainment-wise, to watch them, like, it's so dull, isn't it? Do you think Ronaldo moved at the right time? Do you think he kind of sensed that coming, and he left, obviously, as always, one step ahead?
I'm not sad about Barcelona, because Atletico is my second team, and they have been since I was 9. So I am loving where Atletico are right now. Like, I'm like, yes, this is phenomenal. Like, the league is practically ours to lose at this point. We're just drawn 1-1 at this point, but hopefully we'll win the game. But yeah, so I mean, it is sad in a football sense. You never want to see a club of that stature struggle, because everyone's grown up on watching Barcelona. Like, I remember when, like, Puyol is one of my favourite players of all time. I just loved him. And it is kind of crap to see it in that perspective, but it's great, obviously, for the other teams. And I personally think La Liga equally matches the Premier League for being like the most entertaining, competitive league, especially in the past couple of years. Because as you say, like, Sevilla have started doing really well. Real Sociedad have come up and started doing really well. So yeah, but Ronaldo 100% left at the right time, and he's still continuing smashing his career. He's still like really great goal scorer. Still a standout player. So he absolutely left at the right time to continue his career, because I mean, it could have been another situation where, he was off form and he wasn't great, because Real Madrid have kind of kept with Benzema, and the last couple of years Bale lost the plot at Real Madrid, and he's now losing the plot again at Tottenham. Like, he just would rather go and play golf. So yeah, he absolutely left at the right time, and I still love Ronaldo. Ronaldo's like my number, like, well, not my number one, but out of Messi and Ronaldo, he's my favourite. So I'm kind of glad that he's left now. But Messi's,
I would always be biased, wouldn't I?
Yeah,
I would always be biased to say Ronaldo. Of course I would. Just want to shout out Doug. He's just hit 1,000 subscribers. A massive congrats to Doug. If you haven't subscribed, go and subscribe to his channel as well. And there's news there, it's 1-1 still, the Fulham Burnley game. But looking at teams, I mean, in terms, do you expect Joe Linton to start? Do you expect St Maximin to start, for example? I mean, is there any like major injuries at Newcastle at the minute that will massively upset, apart from Wilson, obviously, your starting lineup?
Yeah, so obviously in not the last game, the game before Chelsea, we got 3 really, really bad injuries. So Manquillo, our right back, is now out for 8 weeks. Wilson's out for 8 weeks, and Fabian Schär's now done for the season. So it's really looking peak for us because they were, you know, the starting 11 players, and Kraft at right back, I absolutely, honestly, like, I would rather play there, like, genuinely, because that's how little I trust him. He's just awful. And we've let Yedlin go to Galatasaray, so it's like he's the only option at right back unless we kind of play like a wing back system, which we don't now. We don't play that sort of system now. I don't think Joe Linton will start. I think possibly Carroll might be in there, just because Gale didn't really have a great game against Chelsea, which is unfortunate because it's the first time he's played in a long time, and you're against Chelsea. Look, you're not expected to do much. Do you know what I mean? I think Carroll might start unless he plays Gale and like brings Carroll on towards the end, like late sub, which he's known for. So yeah, St. Maximin will start. I think absolutely Almiron will start, which, you know, that's fair enough, which is what we normally do, and probably Gale or Carroll in the middle. Midfield wise, I would love the Longstaffs to start, but Steve Bruce isn't a fan, which to me is just so weird.
If he's watched past games against us, though, if he's watched past games against us, he should start them.
Start Matty Longstaff. I would love to see like a midfield 3 of Hayden, Willock and Matty Longstaff. That's what I would personally like, because I don't rate Shelvey. Again, he's another player who is just, for me, hugely inconsistent. If he can't lump a long ball, he don't really do anything. So yeah, I would love to see Matty Longstaff start. Whether or not he will is a different story, because I truly feel like Steve Bruce is like a Man United agent. I think he's a Man United fan. He sits there and says, I'm a Newcastle fan. He's not. He's a Man United fan. So I wouldn't even be surprised if he like just plays the worst team ever and like gifts you the win. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised. I'd just be like, okay.
maybe he just says I'm a United fan and just keeps it ambiguous. Like, that could be either, to be fair.
Honestly, you'll frustrate the life out of me. If he like in his pre-match, if he's like, oh yeah, United, and he means you, I'll be like, I'll be so
subliminal
mad.
messages and that. Definitely going on there. He just says United, just keeps it short. George says, to be fair, Atletico are probably going to win it this year, so that's good news for you. Do you actually think Atletico will win it? I'll add that on there.
I do, yeah, I do really think that, as I say, it's kind of a godsend for us that we've picked up form while others have lost form, because I think it still would have been tight, obviously, with Real Madrid and stuff at the top, but Atletico have just completely changed their system with this year, with Suarez signing. Our attacking output is the same as our defensive output, which for the last, I would say, 6-7 years that we've been known as like park the bus. So yeah, I think it is ours to lose this year, but whether or not, I don't know if Atletico are going to do it. I hope we're not like a Brendan Rodgers style, like bottle it.
Don't want anyone slipping over or anything like that. No, definitely not. But I mean, going into this one, I'm going to ask you in a minute what your score prediction is. But firstly, I want to ask if you could have one player from United, Manchester United. So I'm not doing Steve Bruce. If you could have one player from Manchester United, who would you choose and why? At Newcastle, of course.
I think everyone would say the same, Bruno Fernandes, but I'm not going to say that, because obviously with Wilson out now, we really need a goal scorer. So
you want Martial?
Yeah, no, he wouldn't even help, I don't think. So for me, it would be Rashford for me. What a guy! What an absolute hero, just in general. Like, after everything he's done, I love him. But yeah, I think we need a goal scorer and a decent young one. So I think him and St. Maximin could link up pretty well. Same with Almiron. So yeah, I'll take Rashford.
To be fair, some pace there with Rashford and St. Maximin, isn't it? See, for me, the other way, I'm going to flip the coin and I'm looking at Newcastle. I think I'd have to say St. Maximin. Like, he's the guy, and at the minute, watching Newcastle, if he's not playing, you're thinking, where's this spark coming from?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you have Wilson, who is a scrapper up front, and he kind of wins a lot of the goals that he scores. He works really hard up front. But in terms of actual flair, like, he's unpredictable, isn't he? And on his day, he's literally unplayable. If he turns up, like, he's unplayable, and that's what I fear against us. Obviously, I've already mentioned it's a bit like a cup final to certain players. I'm sure St. Maximin, Old Trafford is going to be absolutely buzzing for this game, and that's one player that I really fear. You mentioned his injury and he's just getting back, but he's had a few games under his belt now. I just fear that any moment in time he's going to burst into life, and I just hope it's not against us. But yeah, I just think that he's such a technically good player, and also his tweets make me laugh. I've got to add that on there. His personality
so
as well.
He's so funny.
It's funny,
I
isn't he?
laughed when he called out Paul Merson the other day for calling him Sam Maximus, and he changed his Twitter name to Sam Maximus and stuff. It was making me laugh so much.
Yeah. He's a funny guy, and I love that as well. You mentioned his whole personality thing, isn't it? Rashford, what he's done off the pitch as well. But that's what I like about Maximum. He's just so funny off the pitch as well as obviously being so unpredictable on it. But yeah, he'd be the guy that I'll be definitely looking at. But hand on heart then, Kendall, moment of truth. What is your honest score prediction? And guys, get in the chat and get involved as well. And obviously, if you want to name any goal scorers and whatnot, feel free. But what do you think the score is going to be at the weekend?
I think 2-0 Man United. I cannot, even regardless of the centre-backs, I just cannot see us even getting a goal. I hope I'm wrong, I really do. But yeah, 2-0 Man United, I think. I did say that against Chelsea as well, and it was right. So I normally seem to be pretty right on the defeats.
To be fair, Ryan agrees, yeah, he says 2-0. I think George said 2-1 or 3-2. Got a 7-0 there. I'd love to see that, but I just can't see it happening.
Don't let them
put a bet on it though. Put a bet on it though, definitely. 3-1, 2-1. See, I never think we're going to keep a clean sheet. I've already mentioned I'm never confident anyway, but if we do win, it's very rare we'll keep a clean sheet. And when we have, VAR's helped us out, or we've got lucky in some form. Defensively, like at times, I just think we switch off. We switch off at key moments, and I think if Lindelof is put up against Carroll, I think that could be a test for us. I mean, how often this season have you seen we've conceded first and come back from that?
Yeah.
So I just think we'll concede, and I think it'll be a bit like the first game, to be fair, where we kind of spring to life and we bounce back from that. So I'm gonna say 3-1 win, I think, to us. In terms of goal scorers, I think Bruno, he scored in the last game. I think he'll score again.
Yeah.
I would like to see a Maguire header, if I'm honest, because I just feel like...
Don't do this, please.
The little tantrum he had, though, did you see at the end of the game against West Brom? He had a header, it hit the woodwork, and he's like flinging his arms around. He had a right meltdown. So, yeah, I hope he gets a goal. And then I'm going to say Rashford, because I always want Rashford to score, to be fair. Yeah, so, yeah, I think 3-1, but I do think he'll score, though. I don't think it'll be a clean sheet. Someone said that Bruno's going to bag a penalty. It's been a while, to be fair, hasn't it? It's been a while.
It has, actually. Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
Surprise.
What's your thoughts on VAR, though? Obviously, we've never had the conversation on VAR, but do you like it? Do you dislike it? What's your thoughts on it?
I don't even think VAR is the problem. I think it's the officials that are the problem who are interpreting VAR, because, like, look at the whole Mike Dean situation a couple of weeks ago. Like, red card rescinded. The penalty, like the penalty that he gave was, sort of brought out afterwards to not have been a penalty if it was. A couple of games before that, the whole Man City offside thing, like that, it's the officials that are the problem. So VAR isn't going to help officials who are rubbish at their job. Like it's just going to heighten it and make it worse. Like they're having to, for some reason now, like the FA and the referee association are having to bring out, like, try and explain rules, which has never happened before. Like, if you're an official, you should know the rules. You should be able to interpret the rules. But yeah, I think VAR is good if it's used properly and if it's used, in the right way. But like it is in Australia, in their football league, in their rugby leagues, it's used really great. You can hear everything the referee's saying. You can hear the decisions for certain things. But yeah, I just think the officials are the problem. It's not VAR that's the problem.
I think with VAR, like, I get it, get to the right decision, but for me, ultimately, it's still human error. It's still some human sat watching a screen, so it's still down to their opinion. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I don't like about it. It doesn't eradicate that at all, really. I saw Rooney said the other day that we should just get rid of it and it'd be better. Now, I've got to be honest, I watch, obviously, United ladies quite a lot. And in the women's game, obviously, there's no VAR. There's nowhere near the funding for that, but there's no VAR. So you're watching just raw football. And sometimes decisions go against you, sometimes they go for you. There might be an offside goal that's given. But I don't know about you. I miss seeing that. Like, I miss having the debates about certain goals and whatnot. Now all we're doing is raging against officials. Do you know what I mean? I think he's just directed the rage somewhere else as opposed to being, I don't know, at opposition fans and being bitter.
Completely agree. Like, you can't even, like, have a discussion post it, as you say, like, as if you thought it was offside or not, because you're kind of being told that it isn't. And it's completely taken, I know this has probably been brought up a lot in terms of VAR conversation, but it's completely taken the natural adrenaline and the natural joy from a game, because if you score a goal, you're kind of waiting to see if it's
Can't
going to be
celebrate,
checked by VAR, and like you celebrate, and then it's like, oh, it's not a goal, and it's like, oh, well, what was the point in that? Like, it's just, I just think it's completely taken the natural enjoyment out of a game, because you are kind of always looking to VAR to see if it's going to roll something out, or if that offside's going to be noticed, or it's just the flow of the game's upset, and it's rubbish as a football fan, because you go for the enjoyment, you go for the excitement, and that's what it's there for. So yeah, I do agree on that respect 100%.
Yeah, and as Doug says there, he says subscribe to Kendall's channel. Kendall, if you want to shout out your channel, let people know where they can find you as well, obviously. Make sure you go and support her, guys. Fantastic content. All right, for a Newcastle fan, I would say. I'm joking.
I'll take that any day. But yeah, if you want to find me, just Kendall Rowan on YouTube, so you can just find me there.
I will drop it in the description afterwards as well, guys, and I'll tweet, obviously, so make sure you get following. Ross, thank you for the super chat. It says a referee could get a decision horribly wrong and still be refereeing a game next week. The problem isn't VAR, it's the referees.
Yeah.
Mike Dean, I think, is a big example of that. It's always got to be made about him, hasn't it? Like, he always makes the story about him. That the other day, I spoke, obviously, I was on Hammer's chat, actually, just after that incident, obviously, did a preview for our game in between, and they're kind of waiting to hear whether the red card was going to be overruled or not. And he said that he believed that Mike Dean he watched it so many times because he didn't believe that it was a red card, but in his ear they were saying, you need to send him off here.
Yeah.
See, that whole communication. In rugby, you can hear the whole conversation between the officials and the referee and everything. Like, I think if we do keep VAR, which we obviously will do because of the money that's been invested into it, I think we need to have clearer communication. We can hear why a decision is being given, because sometimes you think you're going mad about a decision and players will be going mad and they could lose their head. When afterwards, when it's explained, you think, oh, fair enough then, yeah, I kind of understand it now. But obviously in the raw emotion, you don't get it. And I think that you should hear those conversations. And that's one thing that maybe they can add on to it. But Kendall, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, thank you to everyone in the chat as well. Make sure you go subscribe to Kendall's channel. Really appreciate it. And I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
No, absolutely loved it. Genuinely, thank you so much for having me and all the nice comments that have come in. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, and obviously we'll get you back on again at some point. Hopefully we get an entertaining game nonetheless at the weekend, and not another boring defensive performance from us, because it'll be two defensive teams, just nothing happening. I hope we don't see that.
That would be the worst ever, that. Oh, God,
hopefully we don't see that.
Like, no.
Yeah, fingers crossed that doesn't happen. And guys, obviously, if you are new, please do hit that sub button. If we've missed you in the chat, we don't mean it. We'll simply check the comments afterwards and we'll reply to you there. And obviously, hit a like on the video as well. Thanks to everyone who's tuned in. Thanks to you, Kendall. Have a good evening. Take care.